Hello and welcome to Asian Voices. I'm your host, Kathleen Choi. On today's show, we have the honor to meet best-selling author Lisa See, whose novels include Snowflower and the Secret Fan, which was made into a successful film, and discover her family's deep history with Chinatown in Los Angeles. Then we'll meet with one of Hollywood's most sought-after music composers and hear how this award-winning musical prodigy actually had plans for a completely different career. Later on the show, we'll visit with the co-founder of one of the world's leading stem cell therapy medical clinics as he shares his life's philosophy of giving, as well as how this promising treatment is helping many people. Those stories and more coming up next on Asian Voices. Our first story takes us to Los Angeles, where we meet an accomplished best-selling author, Lisa See. Her paternal grandfather's unique story, part of Chinatown's history, has had a great impact on her life and work. Her best-selling books include Shanghai Girls, China Dolls, On Gold Mountain, and Snowflower and the Secret Fan, which many have discovered through the subsequent films starring Vivian Wu and Hugh Jackman.
I would say that first and foremost, I am a writer and a storyteller. But beyond that, I have really, I think over time, kind of become someone who's been really interested in history, interested in sharing history, trying to find stories that have been lost, forgotten, deliberately covered up, particularly about women. And so for me, that's probably my greatest passion. I lived with my mother when I was a little girl, but I spent a lot of time with my father's family in Los Angeles, Chinatown. We had a family store. It's been in the business in our family for over 100 years, and it was filled with all of these Chinese antiques and furniture and silks and all of this wonderful stuff. And at the end of the day, my grandparents and my great aunts and uncles would go to what they called the back of the store. It was actually a little alcove just inside the front door, where they would have a drink and some snacks, but they would also tell these wonderful stories about the family, particularly about my great-grandfather, Feng Si, who came here as a boy and eventually, grew up to be kind of the godfather patriarch of Los Angeles, Chinatown. My family loved to tell stories. They loved to kind of one-up each other on stories. And there were certain stories that were told again and again and again, but always kind of escalating them. My mother was also a writer, and her father was a writer. So I feel like I had these writers on both sides of my family. And being able to tell a good story, being able to entertain, being able to go to the heart of a story or a person or an emotion was something that was just valued throughout my family. My first book, On Gold Mountain, was a big adventure to get it published. It's always hard to have your first book published. But what was interesting for me at the time was publishers were actually looking for other Chinese American stories. I felt that there was a lot of this history that most people didn't know. Here in California, where my family was, Chinese down to a quarter couldn't own property in this state until 1948. Chinese down to a quarter couldn't marry someone who was white until 1948. And then at the federal level, of course, Chinese couldn't become naturalized citizens until 1943. I felt like if I could tell my family's story within that larger history, then people would be able to learn that history in a kind of way of like, oh, what's happening with this family? That's what keeps you turning the pages. Snowflower and the Secret Fan was the first of my historical novels. This is about women in one very remote county in Hunan province in Jianyang County, where the women for 1,000 years wrote in a secret writing system. I thought this was just the most amazing thing. And when I first learned about it, I thought, how could this exist? And I didn't know. And then how could this exist? And we all didn't know. Because so often we hear about women in the past. There were no women writers, there were no women artists, there were no women historians. But here was an example of something that women invented, used, and again, kept a secret for 1,000 years. I did interview the woman who was at that time the world's oldest living Nushu writer. I was so fortunate to have gotten to meet her. I consider it one of the high points of my life. Snowflower and the Secret Fan became a film. A woman just wrote to me through my website and said, you know, I really love your book. I really would like to produce it. I have a friend who wants to produce it with me. Both women, although they had no experience in making movies before, they certainly had very good connections to get a film made.
Her name was Snowflower. She had a love tongue named Lily, a sworn sister for life. I'm writing a book. It's about the old days, but I think it's really about us.
I'm working on a lot of different things right now. I have recently finished a novel about my great-grandmother, also on my father's side of the family. I'm also beginning to think about what the next novel will be. My two main pieces of advice for aspiring writers are, one, to write 1,000 words a day. Put yourself in the chair and do the work. But the other piece of advice that I feel is equally important is to be passionate about what you do. You have to find this passion within yourself that keeps you moving forward, that keeps you wanting to sit in the chair to do the work, that makes you feel inspired every day to work on it. And I just think that this is the way that we can find real joy in writing, and it will translate out onto the page.
Welcome back. When you watch your favorite movies, do you ever notice the music? Maybe or maybe not. Music certainly plays a very important role in telling the story and can even affect audiences' emotions. Meet Nathan Wang, one of the most sought-after film composers, not only in Hollywood, but in Beijing and Hong Kong as well. Nathan shares his story with us about his life's rather serendipitous journey from child music prodigy to finding success as a film composer.
For some reason, I'm one of these composers that if I know what I'm supposed to do and I'm supposed to come up with a theme, if that theme doesn't come up in 5 minutes, I know I'm on the wrong track. Luckily for me, it seems like my instinct is correct most of the time. Actually, I was born here, but I was very lucky because my parents spoke Cantonese and Chinese to me. So I grew up with sort of the culture, and my mother's from Hong Kong, my father's from Hong Kong. I started when I was very, very young in terms of music, and I had a chance to perform with the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra with a conductor by the name of Louis Palange. And they got me on stage, 9 years old, at the Hollywood Bowl. I was performing, and at the very beginning, he kind of winked at me during an interval when the orchestra was playing, and he was conducting, and he looked back at me. The story goes is that I winked back at him. But I was playing the Haydn Piano Concerto in D major, and I think at that point, when I was 9 years old, my parents knew that I was really a pianist more than anything else. It was kind of ridiculous. Yes, I was walking around campus with a lunch pail basket or a lunch pail. You know how some people have a plan in terms of what they want to do in this step, after I'm 27, after I'm 29. I didn't really have a plan. I just knew that I was wanting to enjoy myself, and enjoying myself means staying in music. I was playing at a 5-star restaurant. I was just basically playing the piano, jazz, and really enjoying myself. And I noticed every time I played, there would be this person who would come in, and he would just sit down and literally stay there from 10 at night when I started to 2 in the morning when we would finish. But there was one time when I got a call, and he said, "Nathan, I would like to hire you for tonight to come out to Warner Brothers because I'm a producer on a show called China Beach." I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Tonight?" I go, "Oh, you know what, tonight I have tickets for the Dodgers game. I'm sorry, I can't do it." And can you imagine? The producer of the show had to talk me into going to Warner Brothers and giving up my tickets for the Dodger game. And it took him for like 20 minutes because I was resisting. I thought, man, Dodgers, how can I turn it? Man, I can't do that. But in the end, he won. And I'm so glad he won that argument because it literally changed my life. The very next day, the head of the music department at Warner Brothers calls me and goes, "Nathan, the China Beach production team would like to hire you as a pre-record music supervisor." I go, "Great." And they go, "Can you start next week?" I go, "Sure." Hang up the phone. And next moment I try to call a friend. I go, "Do you know what a pre-record music supervisor is?" I basically took the job without knowing what the job is. I figured, you know what the heck, yeah, sure. And literally that launched my career. And after being pre-record music supervisor, I became the composer, and that kind of helped me launch my career. I remember my shortest deadline that I was given. It was when it happened on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, I get a call from Jackie, and Jackie Chan says, "Oh, Merry Christmas, Nathan. It's already Christmas here in China. How are you doing?" And I go, "Great. Thank you so much for calling. This is great talking to you, Jackie." And he goes, "Everything going well?" I go, "Yes." He goes, "Nathan, would you like to work on a movie?" I go, "Sure." He goes, "Okay, I'll send it out to you tomorrow." I go, "Whoa, okay." I go, "When is it due?" He goes, "Next year." I go, "Okay, when next year?" He goes, "January 1st. That's next year. I go, "Oh God, you're right, but that only gives me a week." And you know how movies are. Movies are basically in 6 or 7 reels. Normally it's 6 reels. So basically I have to do a reel a day. And a reel usually is about 15 to 20 minutes. And because it was a deadline, as I told you, and in order to survive in Hollywood, you literally have to meet your deadlines. My main philosophy in terms of what I do, I think in order to be successful, is to enjoy what you're doing. Try to do something that you're super passionate about and enjoy it. And just accept it, whether it means, you know, trials and tribulations and sometimes, but just accept it and enjoy it. Since 2008, I've really concentrated on working in China. Since the Chinese found me from the Beijing Olympics, they thought, oh, we found an American-Chinese composer in Hollywood. What a great fit, because we want to have sort of the Hollywood sound, but yet at the same time keep sort of the Chinese culture intact in the Olympics. And since then, I've been able to really concentrate on a lot of Chinese major movies and have worked with major directors and major superstars over there. At the same time, I've had a really great time working on movies that have been produced and distributed by Disney, Warner Brothers, and DreamWorks. And so I've been able to hopefully straddle both sides of the Pacific. I am Nathan Wang, Wong Zhongxian, and this is my voice.
I'm sure you agree that life is truly a journey and we all seek to find our purpose along the way. Our next story is about such a man who has found his purpose by helping others. Meet Devin Patel, the co-founder and CEO of GeoStar, a leading stem cell research company in San Diego, who along with his partner has a mission to open regenerative medicine and stem cell research and treatment centers worldwide, including in his own country of India.
My ever-evolving journey of self-realization began at a very early age, and thanks to my spiritually evolved father and grandfather. And I learned the fundamental spiritual laws of giving is the highest level of living just by observing their purpose-driven life every day. The compass of life should not be based on something illegal or legal, but it should be based on something moral or immoral. And I learned to live my life by these spiritual laws, no matter how hard it is, no matter how dire the consequences. That spiritual living created a very strong character of manifesting ideas into reality. Everything I did in my life, I always did out of sense of love and care and compassion and this living the life of vulnerability. And this vulnerability created several opportunities for me to touch many lives in a very meaningful way. And it is these practices always keep me like a childlike, and help me see this grace and divinity in everything I do. I grew up in India, and very defining moment was when I burned my stomach during the Festival of Lights, and where I burned almost half of my stomach, and that kind of changed a lot of point of views in life. The career journey is very exciting. Stem cell research, which is the ultimate journey that we both landed into 20 years ago, and this is the journey that makes it more fulfilling because now we're trying to find cures for incurable diseases, and that's what makes this journey more rewarding. What got me into the field of stem cell science, I would call it's a journey of healing, and I've always been concerned when I see people suffering from different kind of diseases, and throughout my life. And when I came across this science of Dr. Anand Srivastava many years ago, God has led me to the right solution for healing the humanity. It's a very beautiful story. We met in the temple in San Diego, and Indian temple, and we started talking about the science, and when he described the depth of science and its ability to really address the root cause of these diseases and find cures, there's nothing more exciting in life than to embark on that journey. And we just embarked from that conversation, and 20 years later we're sitting here.
Doctors believe stem cells, the building blocks of the body, are the answer to incurable diseases. For an American to undergo a clinical trial, it'll cost $250,000 at least. But in India, it's all free. GeoStar, the Global Institute of Stem Cell Therapy and Research, based in La Jolla, it is building the world's largest stem cell treatment hospital right now in India, a $2 billion project.
This is the most elite, expensive, and advanced science of mankind, and we wanted to take it to the masses. And that is this whole journey, and that's what Dr. Srivastava always said, that how do we take it to the masses? How do we make it available? How do we make it affordable? And this is the journey where we started doing that, working with the world governments, helping them develop stem cell policies for their country, stem cell treatment program, stem cell transplant program, and that's how we've been able to penetrate to the masses. But still, we still call it, I think it's just the beginning. This is a divinely ordained project for me and Dr. Anand. It's a journey of healing, and it's an ongoing journey. And our mission and our vision is to make this most advanced, elite, and expensive science available to the masses.
This program was made possible in part by the California Arts Council, advancing California through the arts and creativity. Team Metro Real Estate, helping families with real estate investments in San Diego since 1990. Contact us today for your free in-home market valuation. Promote your organization or event online today on Asian Pacific Community Connection Business Directory website. Asian Voices was brought to you by Asian Culture and Media Alliance, empowering our Asian and Pacific Islander communities through media arts since 2013.
Please support the only television program
that creates a voice of real change.
Asian Voices.
Asian Voices.
Asian Voices.
Asian Voices.
Asian Voices.
Asian Voices.
This is our voice.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. Be sure to check out other Asian Voices stories on our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Before I go, I'll leave you with today's music video by a talented music artist. I'm Kathleen Choi, and I'll see you next time on Asian Voices. Until then, take care, everyone.
Hi, Mom. I'm just calling to tell you that I'm alright and I'm gonna be okay. I miss you. I love you. Bye. When the words get caught up in your throat and you don't think you can breathe, sing like someone's listening. When the words get caught up in your throat and you don't think you can breathe, sing like someone